Okay, we have some information on Picard, Lost in Space, and of course Lower Decks after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and we are in the Nerds Corner right now, but I do have some pictures from the new house. We have been slowly, we finished most of the repairs on it, and now we're working on moving furniture and things in. We have a few things going in this weekend, and then we'll be making greater strides as we go on, and then we'll have time to actually fix up the shed where we'll be able to do our videos from there. In the meantime, we'll be here and there. Anyway, we talk about today the latest news from Lost in Space is that they're actually going to begin in the beginning of December, pretty much as we expected that to happen, and that is the idea that the Jupiter colony is going to the robots' planet, and they will have some adventures there. It will be the last season of Lost in Space, and that'll be starting up pretty soon. We also know that due to an interview with Lisa Briones, who plays Soji in Picard, that the season 2 of Picard is going to deal more with childhood issues. This is a time travel on the A side of the story, but on the B side, it's going to talk about people's childhood. We already looked into that in season 1 with Soji, who thought she had a childhood and actually had only lived maybe 3 years. Whereas we have Picard, who we've touched upon this in the Next Generation. After his encounter with the Borg, he goes back to Chateau Picard and gets into a big fight with his brother. And the idea that Picard did not have such a great childhood, his brother told him at the time, were you going to space to seek adventure or to run away from something? And we're going to look in greater depth as to what Picard was running away from. Also, we have it in other characters of Rios having dealt with the death of his captain, and we'll delve more into that. Raffi, who has had multiple encounters with illicit substances throughout her life, we'll look into that. And of course, we already know Elnor was raised by nuns and was the only male in a whole colony of females, and therefore had his own feelings of not beginning. So all of this is going to be investigated in this season of Picard in season 2. Season 3, which we talked about last week, we don't know much about except that Q is not going to have a part of it, and that Picard is going to be aboard a starship for some reason or other. So we'll find out more about these things way down the line. However, we do know that Discovery is going to launch earlier than we expected and actually be starting before Prodigy is over. So we expect to see, as we mentioned last week, that Discovery starts on November 18th. And in Lower Decks, we find that there was an interesting way of looking at some of the other cultures that are mentioned in Star Trek. We've seen Lower Decks from the viewpoint of the lower decks of a rather unimportant starship in the Federation, but in this episode, they take us aboard a Klingon bird of prey Lower Decks, a Pakled ship Lower Decks, a Vulcan ship Lower Decks, and even a Borg cube Lower Decks. It's a very clever playing with the concept. It really doesn't matter how many Easter eggs are in this particular episode, but an interesting insight into how the other 3/4 of the galaxy lives. So, we'd like to know what you think about that and other things in the comments below. Please do leave that. And of course, if you have not subscribed, it is a free thing to do, and we certainly would appreciate that. That'll keep the channel going as things start ramping up with Star Trek and other science fiction on television. Until next time, then, don't go far.